Well, welcome out there once again. Always a pleasure to have you out there, and always a pleasure to be here. Matter of fact, this is probably my 12th year here at the studio. I think it's quite an accomplishment, actually. Been a long time, but I'm going to be around for a little while longer. I have some people who have been on before. They were on actually last year, and they're from Tiverton. They ran for the Charter Commission in Tiverton. There were 9 of them on a slate, each endorsing each other, and they also got an endorsement, I believe, from another group that they'll get into. And the amazing part of it was that at the conclusion of the election, they were all put into office, the whole 9. And they filled the Charter Commission, which was, to me, an astounding feat. And I think it shocked a lot of people in Tiverton as to what took place. And they've been meeting on a regular basis, and they're going to get into some of the things that have happened since then. And I think what they'll explain too is some of the resistance to some of their proposals. So I'm going to introduce them. Justin Katz, welcome to the program. You've been on a number of times. Rod Coulter. Rod, Attorney Rod Coulter. I'm going to get that title out there. We have Jeff Caron. Jeff.
How are you?
Sergeant at Arms here, a tough guy. You pushed. You talk about a trailblazer. And Attorney Nancy Driggs. Nancy, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling me. And just to let the audience know, they're here tonight, 1/2 hour, and they'll be back next week for another 1/2 hour. So, you get yourselves elected. And what's been happening since then? You got elected in July, I believe, of last year.
Correct.
And you've
July
been meeting.
18th. And just to, it was the Tiverton Taxpayer Association that had endorsed the slate of 9 of us out of 24 who ran. So.
Now, what's happened since? You've been having regular meetings. Mm-hmm. I imagine you've come up with some proposals. These, as I recall, get passed on to the town council. But what's happened?
I could give a brief summary. So we've had approximately 135 proposals which have been formally submitted to the commission. We've met so far 22
when you say
formal meetings.
The commission?
To the Charter Review Commission.
Okay. And
we've more or less about 1/3 of those so far have been approved.
By the commission? By the commission.
By the commission. About 1/3 have been either disapproved or withdrawn from the sponsor, the person that put them in, and roughly 1/3 of them have had preliminary debate but have not yet come up for formal votes. We've also had our first public hearing on a casino-related matter, and we're about 8 months out of 12 through the process, and then we will be submitting all of those we maintain to the voters to be voted on at which should be at the November election, if not a special election.
All right, so all these proposals that the Charter Commission approves or accepts will then be placed before the voters?
We hope so.
We hope so.
Okay.
That's one of the issues.
Well, that's actually the problems that have arisen are that because, as you say, the whole slate, and I'm not on that commission, I'm on the budget committee, but the whole slate that was elected, and suddenly the town council started to not want to pay a whole lot of attention to the Charter Review Commission. So that it's not filmed most weeks. The town council hasn't wanted to come and present their suggestions. Their lawyer, who's supposed to be the lawyer for the town, hasn't really been helpful in working through, and they're dealing with legal language, so they really need the help of the town's lawyer. Hasn't been but so available, and they seem to have designs on the money and the revenue that'll come from the casino when it opens in the fall. And all of those issues are starting to raise, because they're on a timeline, starting to raise some problems about how this is actually going to be put before the voters. And they contend, and I agree, that the they're elected, and their proposals ought to go before the voters. The town council is allowed to change the language that appears on the ballot just to clarify things if need be, but the town council seems to think that they can just put in their own suggestions and ignore the work that they do, just as they've been ignoring them for months.
No, I'm sure that that's been very upsetting. You put a lot of time into this, and these proposals have been formulated. You want progress to be made, obviously. What seems to be the problem, Jeff?
Well, I think what you started on was kind of the beginning of it, in that I remember distinctly the current town council president saying at a budget committee meeting that the reason that we needed to have this charter review commission was to address a couple of areas in the charter for the casino revenue issue. And I think they perhaps did not anticipate that the taxpayer endorsed candidates, all 9 of them, as you pointed out, Richard, would be elected to these positions. So
I think it's their worst nightmare, actually.
Perhaps the plan to have a charter review commission that's a bunch of puppets is not panning out so well.
Yeah.
So I think that's perhaps part of the issue, and I just want to go back, and this chart might look familiar to people who follow your show, but you'll see that on the right half of this, I got to go on this side here. This is the tax growth before the FTR and after the FTR, and look how it flattens out once we had the FTR. And I think the bottom line, at bottom, okay, the issue is that the government wants more of your tax dollars, more of the people's money, and that's the bottom line.
Tiverton Town Council.
The bottom line is living under controlled taxation like this chart shows, is less than pleasant perhaps for the government. It's great for the taxpayers, but it's less than pleasant for the government. And so I think that leads to a situation where the casino money maybe was viewed as gonna be a slush fund to augment this situation, but now that we're elected, it's problematic.
Now, as I recall, one of your major concerns was to lower or keep the taxes, real estate taxes
we ran on a
level.
Pledge to protect the FTR
And the casino money would
and
be used
to lower taxes.
to lower or keep taxes at a certain level.
No, to lower.
To lower taxes.
All right.
And that was the pledge that the slate of us
And
ran
you think
on.
that might not happen based on?
Well, let
what
me
you-
put it this way:
Yeah.
when we did finally get some proposals in a very, very late, very far past the deadline from the town council, one of the proposals is to eliminate the budget committee and the FTR, and the town council will become the budgeting czar in the town.
Now, that was a vote taken by the town council?
Well, it's a proposal put in that they want on the ballot, and
But it came in late?
oh yeah,
Did you have to accept it if it came in late?
our president.
We don't have to accept it as a courtesy, and we're going to take it up for debate. We do have a little bit of time left. Part of the problem is they haven't put any explanation for why they are even making the request. So we've asked them to put some reasons for it. Well, why is it that you want to get rid of the budget committee? Why is it that you want to take away the voters' right to vote at the FTR? Why is it that you want the school committee to submit their budget to the town council? Those are pretty significant changes, and they've given us none of those.
It seems like they want to be in full control,
Oh, absolutely, and I think
simply put.
But the issue that the passiveness, aggressive that's going on is really quite astounding. We worked very hard on coming up with a form for people to use to present whatever proposal language they had.
Right.
And we purposely put in what is the reason for the change, what would be the effect of the change. Everybody else has complied with that, except the town council. They gave, as Rob said, they gave no reason, no effect. So one of theirs was, as I just said, another one was to very much strip voters of their easy access to the elector petition and through a number of signatures and removing an option that currently exists, the remand option. So they definitely are trying to fiddle with the two major things that we pledged.
But you don't have to listen to them, really. You can take it up for debate, but in the end, you can reject it.
Well, just to be clear, we've been talking about the FTR, and if viewers don't remember, that's the financial town referendum at which the budget committee proposes a budget on which the people in town, the electors, can vote. And there's also an opportunity for an elector petition for anybody who can gather 50 signatures to put on there with a budgeted amount and a budget that the town would have to follow
And
as an alternative.
And historically, that's new, because at one time, it seemed that you'd meet at a hall and be
Financial
everybody
town
jumping
Right.
around and hollering, and things would not really get anywhere. But now it's more under control.
And that's the significance of what
Right.
Jeff
And
showed
the
you.
FTR with the elector petitions especially is when the increase stopped and, well, slowed down mainly with the elector petitions. Some of the concerns, though, that I'm seeing on the budget committee that dovetail with the Charter Review Commission, the town council just submitted their budget, and it doesn't include any of the revenue from gambling in a casino. So this, if they put a proposal on the ballot in November to get rid of the financial town referendum and the budget committee and just give it to the town council, and if that happens to pass, this could be the last year that voters get a chance to put money, to choose where money goes in the budget. And it's significant, therefore, that they're withholding millions of dollars that even the state is projecting the town will receive. But they don't want to put that in this budget because they're hoping, I think, that come November they'll be able to get rid of this whole mechanism that allows people to vote on their own town spending and then just decide where the money goes after that.
Well, if I'm following you, and you correct me, if they don't put it into the budget, that means people will be paying taxes at a higher level, because that money is not included in a budget, which if it was, then the tax levy could be the same or even lower, because you're bringing in additional revenue once that casino opens. Is that basically?
That's exactly correct.
That's right, and I would connect another dot to this as well by saying like I said, we've had some 135 proposals, but one of the most significant ones is that the Charter Review Commission has approved is to change the charter so that the residential owners in Tiverton receive a rebate or a tax credit of approximately 2/3 of the casino money that comes in. Straight rebate or a straight tax credit, with the rest going into capital reserves, so we're in a little bit of a cushion, a very reasonable proposal. And we were told directly, Jeff was there with me, by the council president and another councilor, that the council will not approve that proposal. They're going to block that proposal and not even let the voters decide on it. And they've said that about a number of our proposals. So you can see, as Justin said, that they've taken it out of the budget process, and they're also going to block the voters from even deciding on what happens to that money.
Well, do you have any mechanism like a referendum, where you collect a number of signatures and then it must be put on a ballot? I mean, it's a lot of work, but you have any sort of mechanism like that?
Well, that's supposed to be the
Because-
Charter Review Commission. So they were all voted into office. They're supposed to be the ones that the town, that electors, people in Tiverton can go to them and say, could you put this on the ballot, please? Otherwise, you have to go through the council. There's no direct access to the ballot to change the town's charter, as would need to happen here.
All right, but if your group is eliminated, then town resident can't go through the charter commission to get it put on the ballot.
Right. The answer, unfortunately, Richard, the final solution, it may be decided by the courts, or it may be decided politically down the road.
When you say by the courts, what would be the issue before court?
Well, the issue the issue would be
Would you bring the case?
perhaps. I can't speak for the whole
But
commission.
whomever would bring the case, what would be the cause of action?
So the commission has already decided to request an independent lawyer because we've also been told in no uncertain
When you
terms.
say commission, you mean the Charter Commission?
The Charter Review
Yeah.
Commission.
Okay.
We've been told, and certainly all evidence has suggested that the town solicitor is taking orders from the town council and only from the town council. So that's our first step. We've also filed a public records request to try to get all communications bearing on this. We filed that just earlier today, and we will. There'll ultimately be a final vote on this, but you know, my point of view, being just one of 9 commissioners, is that not only can we, but we're obligated under our oath to represent our constituents to make sure that their voice is not silenced. So it may have to come to litigation. As far as I know, in the 5 charter review commissions before, this has never happened before. And maybe it's because they were all on the same page politically, maybe not. Jeff has actually been on a charter review commission in the past, and we've been trying very hard to shoot for cooperation, but that does not appear to be what we're getting and receive.
In the past, the town council has always put the proposals on the ballot of the Charter Review Commission.
Do you think the main issue with the council is the casino money? If the casino money wasn't part of this whole scenario, this pickle, you might not be in today?
I think it's both. I think they also hate the FTR because, so it's money. It's, you know, it's taking money away from their.
You think they feel their power is being lowered? They don't have as much.
Well, they don't like it. Their budget this
year.
year.
Like a power sharing.
Well, their budget this year, the town council put forward, is almost 10% increase. That's what they want to be able to do whenever they can. That's the town side of spending. The school came in level, and the problem is I've been the signatory on the elector petitions, but we've put in petitions that kept the taxes down, and they hate having to make the real decisions about not spending. It's just so difficult to say, oh, we have a limited pie here. We're not actually gonna give to this charity, or we're not gonna give people this, or give the unions this big raise, and they hate that. So they want one of the biggest calls to have a charter review commission was to make it harder to put in these elector petitions. And I think so. That I think was at least on an equal level of the casino money, because if they can control the budget process, they control the casino money. So that comes first.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I think it's horrible for the voters. Justin has been the signatory on an elector petition 4 or 5. The bottom line is every alternate petition that has been put forward to the voters since the FTR came in 2011 has won. So taxes.
No, one didn't.
Oh, one didn't. You're right. One didn't. But most of them have won, and that's what has kept the taxes level. So the town council, if you want to look at it that way, has lost.
And so, but the people in Tiverton are happy about this whole thing because they're voting in a favorable way.
And our slate of 9 won by
you have the council
a significant
that doesn't
margin.
like this whole system. That seems to be the situation.
Right, and there are other proposals as well. For example, we have a proposals that would require much more transparency on contract negotiations, for example, so that people could see more what goes on in the open. That is also one of the proposals that we were told to our face that we'll never get to the voters. So it's the FTR and the casino are very important, but we have a number of other important proposals out there as well.
Mm-hmm. We have one proposal actually that when you look at it at the end of the day, it could be called a tax cap, which sets a bar at a 2% tax living increase, and it has an increasing hurdle to exceed that type of an increase. So there's a lot of taxpayer friendly proposals in our mix. Yeah.
And just good government proposals. We actually, maybe this is why they're not happy. One of our it turns out that the town council is maybe the only elected body that receives cash. They receive cash stipends, and we propose to make them volunteer just like the other 150 volunteer boards. So we'll be
friends.
We'll see if the voters
What
get
do
a
they
chance
get paid?
to decide.
What is the
It's a couple $100 a month per, so $100 a
$17,000
meeting.
year.
I don't know.
$2,500 a year,
So, so I do want to stress the FTR is very important and the casino is very important, but the commission's done a lot of work on over 100 proposals.
Correct.
And
I should point out that in the elector petitions that we've put in every year, we take that stipend out for the town council, and every year they just decide to put it back in.
They decide to
Surprise,
put it back.
They
They
just
voted in.
transfer it.
Yeah.
They transfer money.
They transfer money from other priorities to their stipends.
I see. So, where does it stand at this point?
We're still-
Is there a next move you're contemplating?
I'll let Rob address that in terms of,
well, we, I'm trying to remain optimistic that we're able to work this out. We still have a couple months to go. We are full speed ahead with our work. As I said, we've had over 20 meetings. The public is welcome to speak at all of them. All of our documents are online. Everything is up on websites. It's a very transparent process. And we're going to continue to clear, all submitted proposals, hopefully by the end of next month. And that would leave us a 2 or 3 month cushion to make sure that if there's any legal issues that have to be resolved, that we're able to do that.
the charter also says that any proposal has to have a public hearing, but it doesn't specify who can do the public hearing. So we're doing public hearings.
Now, these proposals that are approved by the commission, they'll go before the voters?
They should.
All right, that's the whole idea behind this
Right.
mechanism. Now, when someone goes in the booth to vote, they'll have all these proposals to
That's right.
review. How many could there be?
In the past, my understanding is there has been approximately 30 to 40. That's quite a few.
Yeah,
And
now do
that's-
they get a list prior to actually voting?
They should. In the past, the commission has published a voter information guide. This commission will publish a voter information guide. We're concerned that the town will not give us resources to do that, so we may pass the hat around and publish it ourselves. Just like we've requested videotaping, and one reason we're grateful that you're having us here, Richard, is that, interestingly, the town has taped
Where
only
do you
4
meet?
of our meetings.
What, you meet at the town?
We meet at town hall or at the library or usually a public space, always a public space, sometimes the senior center. And so we're doing what we can to get the word out.
Is it working? Has this been successful? Or do you think maybe,
Well,
No, go ahead.
So I think it's been a huge success so far. I mean, if you look at the mechanics of the commission, and if you look at the volume of work that's being done on the commission, and just the whole level of professionalism and whatnot has been tremendous. And as Rob pointed out, there's a lot of proposals that are good government, and so all that's great. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be. It's going to be unfortunate if a judge has to decide whether the proposal stuff goes directly to ballot or can be blocked, and then it's going to be even more unfortunate if if it turns out that the solution is a political solution. And I raise this up because people at home maybe remember this from last summer because they were all over the town, these cards, and so. Unfortunately, when the dust settles, it may be a political solution that's needed to finally allow the voters to vote on these, but it might take a special election after November to straighten out whatever does happen.
now, in Rhode Island, do other towns or cities have this type of mechanism?
No, and that's what's really unique about Tiverton is we are the only. Maybe there's one other one, but every other charter review commission is appointed by the town council. And because we're elected, we're responsive to the voters, it really defies any logic that one elected body could be blocked by another elected body on the very topic that it was created into being for.
See, in
So-
Fall River, we just had, there was an election of commission members to review the charter. The charter was placed before the voters. The voters approved the new charter, but that's the end of it. Your situation, your charter review commission, however, whatever you call it, the commission is, like you just mentioned, it's different and it's unique. poses problems, concerns with the council?
Yes, it is causing problems, and as we said, this is the first time they've interpreted it that they have the right to block. It's just,
Well, this is something new then.
yes,
It didn't happen in the past.
it has not been raised as an issue. And
Well, a lot of the reason I think a lot of us even got involved in local politics 10, 15 years ago or earlier is because suddenly things that have always been done, when it's convenient for the folks in the town government to not treat it that way, well, the rules technically don't require us to do what's always been done, so we're going to do something a little different. And as Jeff suggested, ultimately the solution may be a political one, which means running the same kind of campaign that got our candidates onto the Charter Review Commission for the town council. And then just we'll have that new power to be able to give power back to the taxpayers.
Do you have a charter? Fall River has a charter.
Yeah.
Do Tiverton
Yeah.
have a charter?
Yeah.
Do you look to the charter for guidance?
Oh, most definitely.
Not the commission, but, you know, a document which,
Right. So,
And-
so our charter says that there'll be an elected charter review commission, which will submit
and
its
what are the powers?
recommendations. So
The-
the town council decides the summary language that appears on the ballot, but the town council doesn't get to block suggestions from the voters deciding. They get to pick the legal wording that goes on the ballot. And that can be subject to some interpretation too. I mean, that can be politically charged. We don't disagree with that. So the adjectives they use, the way they spin the summary, that's in their court. But the charter that we already have has a charter review commission for this express purpose to put changes to that charter before the voters. And that charter was passed also by the state legislature.
Well, it seems that the law is on your side.
I think it is.
If it were to go to court, and if it's explicit in the charter, what would be a negative interpretation?
The only issue potentially is that the state constitution doesn't anticipate an elected charter review commission in the amendment process. It does in the initial adoption
Well, what does the
process.
state constitution have to do with the town of Tiverton?
It speaks a little bit about charters in the state constitution, how you initially adopt one.
All right, so,
Right.
but the Tiverton has a charter,
It does.
and you really look to your own charter, I would say initially,
Well,
unless it's in contravention of state law,
that's the,
state statute.
Which it can't be because the charter was adopted by the General Assembly. Sorry, Justin.
But the challenge is that the charter doesn't explicitly say the Charter Reviews Commission proposals will all appear on the ballot. It's kind of assumed. But it does give the town
Well, you
council.
have precedent? Has it been done in
yes,
this manner?
always has been.
Well, I mean, what is it, stare decisis?
That was, I think, Justin's earlier point, that this has never really been tested before. And it's very rare to have an elected charter review commission. One suspects that an elected charter review commission was put into the charter for this very reason, so that other bodies couldn't block the voters from being heard.
And one of the
All right, we're getting right down to the end, so maybe we could just go around. Anything else, Nancy?
No, I think we've given a good overview of what's going on, and I hope we get to go
We'll
on
be
the
back
ballot.
next week, so Jeff,
Yeah.
anything you want to add?
No,
quickly?
I just encourage all people at home in TV land to to get engaged and to pay attention. Yeah, we tend to meet on Monday nights, so
At the
yeah.
town hall? Every
At the
Monday?
town hall or different places, but it's all on the Secretary of State's website where we meet.
Rob?
I would echo that. It's hard to get the coverage of our meetings, so please watch us when you can.
All right, Justin, anything to add?
No, I would say it's relevant for Fall River rights too, because it'll have some impact on the casino, which I know a lot of people are looking forward to or not looking forward to,
They're
but
gonna-
they're going to pay attention to
They're
it.
going to be supporting that casino, and you know how. Well, very interesting. Thank you being here, and I'll see some of you, all of you, next week. Thank you out there for watching, and I'll see you next time.